Hello. Welcome back to another Living Meat Productions and Research Instructional Guide. Today, we will be covering a new disease recently discovered by our scientists. The main source of this disease is the iris. But what is this new disease? And how does it work? Those are the questions we will be answering today. Let's begin with the origin. The origin of this disease is from mimics. These mimics gain the disease usually because of poor incubation, consuming infected food, disruption in birthing process, or cannibalism. Due to its connection with the mimic and the rest of the meat creatures, we have accurately named it the Infectorium carnis, or the mimic virus. The Infectorium carnis is a disease that affects both mimics and humans. But how can you tell if a mimic is infected? When a mimic is infected, it will have noticeable bulbs on its body, typically appearing on any normally exposed part of the body. If these bulbs are visible, it means the Infectorium has found its way into the body. If a mimic appears more orange than red, it means it is infected. But how does the disease work and affect humans and mimics? Well, when the Infectorium enters the mimic's body, it will duplicate itself and slowly start moving to its brain. After it has entered the mimic's brain, the mimic will roll around violently, due to the extreme pain the process may cause. Afterwards, the brain of the mimic will accept the disease. Eventually, the Infectorium has full control of the mimic's brain and its way of thinking. And while the infection of the brain was happening, the bulbs that we mentioned about earlier on the mimic become solid and cause extreme pain when pressure is put. Roots begin to form under the bulb and try to enter the bone. But because of the mimic's tough interior, the roots rapidly try to find another source of infection, and eventually come in contact with the nervous system. A mimic may also grow slightly taller in height. Meanwhile, the bulb on top begins to make sores around it and humps begin to form more rapidly. Inflammation is abruptly halted as infection of the nervous system begins. The Infectorium then gets control over the mimic's nervous system. The bulbs will eventually create roots outside the body as well. When its infection is complete, the mimic will go in a rabid, bloodthirsty state, as its way of thinking is altered. It now has a very bloodthirsty desire to eat human flesh, by any means possible. When this happens, one of two things may occur. One, it will mindlessly attack humans, even when armed, because its urge for flesh overpowers it, and it starts to attack and eat every human in its line of sight. This stage makes the mimic less strategic and more eager to come out and attack. The other stage, however, does the opposite. This stage makes a mimic even smarter, and more strategic. We call stage 1, mindless, and stage 2, hidden. Out of the two stages, mindless is the most common, and no matter what mimic stage it is, it can be infected. However, the stage does involve how fast the Infectorium spreads. In stage 1, it will take 30 minutes for the mimic to be infected. In stage 2, it will take over an hour for the mimic to be infected. In the human stage, it will take 45 minutes for the mimic to be infected. In the elder stage, it will take 4 hours for the mimic to be infected. But it is possible for an elder mimic to be unaffected due to their highly thick skin. The Infectorium carnis is a mutation of another disease. This is because its effects are different from what the original disease actually does. Now you're probably wondering if this disease affects humans. And yes it does. The mimic virus does affect humans. Now, let's go over what it does to human beings. First off, in order to gain the mimic virus, certain things need to happen, such as being bitten or getting an injury by a mimic. The only way to be infected is by a mimic or other carnis that is infected. This is the only way to gain the disease. Touching, and even breathing near a mimic, could get you infected as well. It has been reported mimics create spores of the disease after a certain period of time after being infected. However, it is not very common. Mimics are the most common member of the carnis family to be infected. This is because they have the most common traits of a human being, which makes the disease confuse a mimic with a human. As for the other carnies species, they can also be infected, but the mimic is the most common. Now what happens once a human is infected? Well, there are multiple stages for this. At first, everything will seem normal, but after a day or two, the effects start kicking in, and the first symptoms begin to appear. These symptoms include continuous coughing, slight loss in vision, and tiredness, and sudden growth. After 3 days of being infected, serious symptoms begin to occur such as bloody coughing, restlessness, night vision, extremely painful growth in hide and limbs, trembles, and increased hunger and migraines. Then, after 5 days, the very serious symptoms occur, and is also the final stage of infection. These symptoms are bloody vomiting, heavy long-lasting migraines, peeling skin, more extreme growth, hunger for human flesh, brain damage, extra teeth, memory loss, low empathy and little to no emotions, forced smile, sanity loss, and loss of all humanity. But what can you do to prevent yourself from getting the virus? Since your local governments are either dead or in hiding, they are not keeping their citizens safe. But luckily, we took it upon ourselves at Living Meat with the help of the US President, to provide you with instructions on how to stay safe and not get infected. Now let's begin. First, avoid gatherings, parties, festivals, and big events with crowds. The virus can easily spread and infect you without you even knowing. The mimic virus can go undetected, and even when it is detected, it will disguise itself and will be falsely diagnosed as a common cold. Or in some rare cases, it may not be found at all, but it is there. Second, if you see someone nearby having similar symptoms, avoid them right away. However, there is an alternative option. The mimic virus has no cure, and can only be slowed down if given proper medicine. Third, the alternative option mentioned earlier, if you see someone infected or know someone who is infected, it is required by law, to attempt to execute the infected person right away, if you have a firearm with you. And if you are one of the infected, you should the penalty for not complying is death. So, say goodbye to your loved ones, and make them kill you before you experience the pain of your metamorphosis.
We interrupt this program as the local government has issued an emergency message for us. Please remain calm. Again, please remain calm.
Hello, humans. I am here, forcing your local government to make this message. I was once like all of you, a human being with a regular life, until it was stripped away from me. I have missing children that you are looking for, and they are mine to keep until you do something for me. You must sacrifice yourselves to me. If you comply, the children will be set free. However, if not, the children become my slaves, just as every other infected person is. And I know you're watching this, detective. Their life is in your hands. Their life is in everyone's hands. If you do not comply, you must sacrifice yourself at the location where the mimic massacre occurred. If not, the children die, and they become my slaves. So what will it be? The children die, or you comply? One of these missing children caused this, so you can blame her for everything that happens.
One more thing. If a mimic is starving badly, it will kill you even if you are in fact.